it's Debbie with the Pick and Coop Farmstead, and I fed my sourdough last night, and today I'm going to make up some dough. It's going to be a double batch, and I thought I'd bring you along with me just so you could check it out. So let me turn my camera around and we'll get started. So I wanted to show you my sourdough. You can see all the bubbles in there. I have it in a much bigger jar, but I put it in this just to manage it. But I fed it last night, and look how nice and bubbly and active it is. So normally what you want to do is you want to feed your sourdough, and what you do is you just add flour and some water, make it super thick, like a thick pancake mix. I used to measure it and discard and do all this other stuff, and I don't do that anymore. You just make it nice and thick, and then I'll do it before I go to bed and set it on top of my refrigerator. And in the morning, this was clear up to the top of the jar. So that's gonna make for some really good active sourdough to make your bread rise. So here we go. So you're gonna need a scale for this recipe. There are conversions out there that you can do to convert like cups and that type of thing, regular measurements. But this recipe that I use, I'll put a link to their sourdough. She has a recipe for the artisanal loaves. That's what I'm making. I'm going to double the batch. So you're going to need a bowl for your dry ingredients. You're going to need your active sourdough, of course. You're going to need salt. I use sea salt, and warm water. So first of all, what I like to do is I turn on my scale. I set my bowl, whatever you're going to use, on the scale, and I'm going to use grams. That's what this recipe calls for. So I'm doubling it. So we're going to use, and it says to use 150 grams of active sourdough starter. So we actually want to double it, so 300 grams. So I'm going to scoop that right into here till I get 300. And I might need to add a little more, or we might just about be there. That'd be nice. Okay, so you don't have to be exactly right. So we've definitely got 311 here, so that's fine. You can scoop a little more out if you like, but it's the sourdough, it's the active part that makes your bread rise, so it's not going to hurt anything. Then you've got your warm water. You can do this of two ways. You can turn this off to zero it out again. That's what I'm going to do. Or you can just add the amount of water to what you already have in there as far as grams goes. Turn it back on, it'll zero itself out. Then I always have to look at my recipe over here. Let's see. This is by truesourdough.com, and I'll put their link in the description so you guys can go follow them. She shows you how to make your starter, what to do with your starter, and actually how to make the bread. Okay, so we're going to put some warm water in there, and it calls for 300 grams of warm water. So you're going to double that to 600. And you do want to be a little more careful with your water. If you accidentally put too much, you can always add a little extra flour. Okay, so we'll turn that off. We've got all of our wet ingredients. So I'm just kind of gently stir it around, let it mix up. Trying to stay out of your way. I don't know that I have my camera quite ready, or right, excuse me. So we're going to stir this all up. And it's just like if you've ever made bread with active yeast, dry yeast, it's just like that. You know, you're going to gently stir it around until it's pretty much dissolved, which it is. It doesn't have to be all the way. Then I put that out of the way. Then I put my next container for my dry ingredients up on the scale. And then we're going to zero that out. or turn it on, excuse me. And it's already at 0. And then you're going to need 450 grams of strong white bread flour. So that's 900 grams. So I just take my whole flour thing. Otherwise you're going to be scooping and scooping for days. So we want to get to 900, which seems like a lot, but you are making 2 loaves. Oops, I did get a little bit too much in there. I am going to scoop some out. So we've got 939, so we need to get rid of 39. There we go, exactly 900. Let's get this guy out of the way. And then you're going to add your salt. And I just add my salt right to my flour. And it calls for 12 grams of salt for 1 loaf. So we want to do 24 grams of salt. So you just add till you get 24. That's a little over, and that's just fine. And what I do is just turn this off. You're not going to need this any longer. Let's get this guy out of the way. And then I just take, I got one of these at a thrift store. I've been wanting one for a really, really long time. It's like a little dough hook type. I don't know what they're called, the technical term. Maybe you guys do, and you can put it in the comments. But it's nice. It's stainless steel. A lot of them have wooden handles. And it's just like a dough whisk. And this thing works fantastic. So I just kind of stir in the salt. Got that all mixed in properly. Get that out of the way. And now we have our active sourdough starter mixed with the warm water. I'll give it another little stir. And then you're just going to pour that right into your dry flour mixture. There you go. So you've got all of that. So basically, bread dough is a very simple thing. It's usually just some salt, leavening agent, which in this case is your sourdough, and or active yeast. And that's it. Flour, salt, yeast, sourdough, whatever your leavening agent of choice is, and water. And then you can add different things, garlic if you want a flavor. I mean, there's so many options. So what I do is I just mix this around. And she says to mix it roughly. So that just means that it doesn't have to be smooth, and just get mostly things incorporated there. And I just make sure I get up all the flour off the bottom here. There we go. And then you're gonna let your dough rest. She says let it rest for 10 minutes, which I used to do all the time. And I kind of find I like my loaves a little better if I let it rest for about 30 minutes. So what I'm gonna do, I forgot to grab a plate. I used to cover this with like a damp towel, and I'll show you what the dough looks like. It's just roughly mixed. There's little dry bits in there, so you can see what it looks like. So let me grab a plate. All right, so I've got a plate. Just get a big dinner plate, what you got there, and I put it over the top, and I let it rest. And I will set my timer for 30 minutes, and then we'll be back. Okay, it's been 30 minutes, so you want to take your lid off. And just flip it upside down. I keep my dough hook right there. And now what they want you to do is do a method, it's called stretch and fold. And you're just creating tension on your bread dough, basically, for this part. You can dip your hands in flour. You can just use your hands, dip your hands in flour so you don't get all doughy, or you can use a little bowl scraper, which I like to do. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to the bottom of the bowl, pull your dough to the other side, and you want to do that about 10 times. So stretch, you're going to stretch and pull. Stretch and fold. And see how the dough starts to come away from the side of the bowl? I don't know if you can see that or not. And 8 to 10 times is plenty. And that way it starts creating tension. And your dough is pretty sticky and tacky at this point, so that's normal. So you just do that about 10 times, which I did a little more, but it's okay. And then I just leave my dough scraper inside the bowl just to keep it clean, and I don't have to keep rinsing it off. And then you're gonna do that 4 times 10 minutes apart. So we'll come back and do it a couple more times. Okay, so we did another 10-minute cycle, and then we just leave your scraper in there if you're using one, put your lid on, boom. And then I just keep track of how many I've done. I've done 2 and I'm on the 3rd one. We'll see you in 10. All right, so we're down to number 4 here. And we're just gonna So I don't know if you can tell or not, but the dough is looking a little tighter, a little less sticky. And we've completed 4 of these. So then we're gonna put our lid, our plate back on. And then now this is ready to sit for at least 6 to 12 hours. It just depends on how warm it is in your kitchen. If it's cold where you are, maybe set it kind of by a wood stove or something. It just depends how quick, or excuse me, how warm your house is and how active and bubbly your sourdough starter was that you put in there. So I'm probably going to make this a part 2, and then what we'll do tomorrow is I'll show you, once you get to this point, what you do next as far as shaping the dough. And then you've got to put it in the refrigerator for at least an hour to let it proof, and then we'll bake it. So I hope the sun is shining where you are, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.